Who you gonna call? MFM, everybody. I think that this system wants to act stupid, but we got to do what we got to do. You know what I look like. I don't know why it's doing this dumb stuff. I've got two hot spots and I've got my thing hardwired. So uh, just understand everybody's having issues with their system. Salute to everybody. Happy Thursday to you. Forgive me, I'm behind in this reading schedule, although I'm going to try to pick up. Um, Greetings to everybody again. Who you gonna call? Coonbusters. This is Angry Black Men's Book Club, and just to let you know, if anything strange happens, you need to know that YouTube took down my postings. They took down the Angry Black Men's posting. I mean, nobody now they just take stuff down and they don't tell you. And by the way, I'm not advocating violence against anyone or radical social change or anything like that. So this just goes to show you the censorship has gone stone mad. Again, I want to thank everybody for everything that you're doing. In a few hours, I'll be out of fake book jail. All that means is that for the thousands of people that I haven't been able to share with or communicate with, at least until they kick me off again, um, I'll be talking to more people. Let me see. It's 9:39. I'm 9 minutes behind, and I wanted to be on time, people. And I'm really hurt because I got two books. One book, I want to thank people for the contributions. Believe it or not, I'm not spending the money on white women in song. When I get stuff, I buy books or things to share with. Every now and then, I may give a donation to someone else in need. So it's not like I'm trying to do anything crazy, nobody. And man, do I have some stuff here. Let me see. I don't even have to hmm, play with this too much, but we got to do some sex, race, and eugenics today. The Forgive me, yesterday that book on Jim Jones that actually depressed me, man. I can't read any more of that. Believe it or not, I do address these topics, but this stuff really it makes me sick and tired, man. I don't like it. Has anybody seen oh, okay, and questions. And by the way, I'll be working with Brother Coolidge pretty soon. You'll be able to call in. I'll be able to call in and I'll be able to chat with people more directly. Uh yeah, I'm gonna have to spend some more money on it. Now, Jeff Savage, good morning to you, brother, in North Carolina. MFM stands for motherfucking money. And that is a way that, because reparations sounds tired talking to people in the streets, but MFM, I mean, it's more, MFM. Where's my MFM? Okay. And by the way, none other than the great Mahalia Jackson was reported as using the words MFM back in the 1950s. So I just want to let everybody know MFM ain't new. I didn't start it. MFM was used by my favorite gospel singer, Mahalia Jackson. I'm hoping, and I'm going to try to do this, that I can get, I may have to reset this computer because there's something has has done all kinds of data drops on everything. Uh, it's so much stuff until you won't get through it all. But they're talking about pedophilia for and that what's this guy Steve Jobs had AIDS and other things. They're putting this all out there. It's out there. It's out there. It's out there. Don't believe me. And they're tyrannizing and attacking everybody that halfway speaks up. You don't hear me out here telling people to storm buildings, and they'll shut and cut your stuff off. And so, I'm being slightly careful. Hey, Psych L 333, and to everybody, let me see. I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes. I see 36 people on the YouTube. In fact, if you cannot see me and you want to see me, and you're sitting on the StreamYard, my YouTube channel is Randy Short does show me. You can see me. Oh, it just went off. I don't know why they did that. The stream just got interrupted. I'm sorry, y'all. They are messed. They do not like the little teeny tiny people like me. They don't like us. I mean, they'll make you think we're all crazy. They just shut me off here on YouTube. I do apologize for this blackout. It ain't me. I'm going to try to reset this one more time so we can all be on one page. And again, I do apologize. I am not messing with the technology. Hello to everybody there on the YouTube page. I'm going to see what I can do real fast with this insanity on StreamYard. And I want to let you know, when I get through today, in particular, if y'all hook me up, I'm going to get a restream. I'm going to have a whole different streaming service. I'm going to have two. I'm going to have two streaming services at one time. In case one thing does something stupid, I can do something else. So I've already looked at it. It's $15 a month. I have to decide today if I want to spend $150 so I can just do what I got to do and not have problems. So I'm thinking I'm going to go to a different stream service so I can stream on maybe 7, 8, or 9 platforms, and we'll just do this week. Absolutely. I don't have time for foolishness. And bear with me. I'm just cleaning this up. Everything was working. The camera, all of this was on. And then all of a sudden, something happened. Maybe 20 minutes before I'm supposed to go on. Everything started acting freaky. It happens. We're not supposed to have these conversations. Freedom isn't free. Freedom of speech, black folks, isn't free. So there's 6 of you watching. Just know that if you can hear my voice, you can come over to YouTube, the Randy Short YouTube channel. I even have a Randy Lancaster Short one. I'm not using that yet. I'm also on the Randy Lancaster Short and Fake Book. So yeah, I know this is why, and that within the next couple of days, we're going to have 7 or 8 different stream things so they can do what they want to do. We'll simply go to another one. Our ancestors always planned for people being crackers and devils and whatever. And some of these people are Kamala's people with the little dots and all. And Okay, there's some kind of mess up here. I can't wait anymore. It's after 10. We have work to do. The video will come on. You couldn't see what's going on, but at some point, this StreamYard made me a guest on my own platform. And I had to go through and do a whole bunch of stuff to verify the account, which doesn't make any sense. They put me on the old programs that I've already done and didn't let me in here. So, in as much as we can't change them, but we should change ourselves. You know what I look like. You know how to find me. The video will eventually come on, and I don't really care about how they feel about it. I'm going to do what I can do with it and just keep it moving. We don't have to worry about them because, you know, they're just them. But yesterday, again, I want to greet all of you with the great words of MFM. Hello to you, all of you, everybody, and thank you for your patience. Y'all need to remember I'm lucky. Black newspapers and journalists and people have been hung, bombed, bought out. I mean, they killed maybe 20 some odd members of the Black Panther Party over the newspaper. Black information is the kind of power they don't want us to have. So don't despair. We know how they are. I left off yesterday from this book called We Charge Genocide. We Charge Genocide. And if you saw the program yesterday, I'll put it up for you who are on the StreamYard. We Charge Genocide edited by William Patterson. And I want to read the last few portions of this. And then I'm going to go into someone that you're more familiar with. I'm posting this so you can look at this. I am in the book We Charge Genocide. We Charge Genocide by William Patterson. I'm on page 12. And this is the opening statement of the charges brought against the U.S. government in 1950s and late 1940s to talk about what's happened to Black people. And I'm going to give you a couple of pages of evidence and read a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to go to someone else. Here we go. Listen to this, and I stopped here, but I'll reread it again. This is talking about racial murders. People need to understand that genocide is not necessarily killing all the people, killing any of the people, killing Breonna Taylor, killing Ahmaud Arbery. These are acts of genocide, whether you've been taught that or not. And they've got you waiting for them to kill everybody before you recognize that killing some is killing all. I'm on page 12. I'm going to read this, but I'm going to skip to 13, but let me read all of it. Not all murders or assaults are by police, but some result from segregation, from living in fire traps, or from denying badly injured Negroes entry into hospitals because of their color. Others result from the constant declaration and determination of white supremacists that Negroes have no rights that a white man is bound to respect. The following are cases that are typical. Mr. and Mrs. O'Day Short and their two little girls were burned to death 2 days before Christmas 1945 in a fire of incendiary origin set by persons that did not want them to move into a white neighborhood in Fontana, California. They had received threatening notes, and the police informed them that they were out of bounds. While the family was away, the house was sprayed with an inflammable chemical. When a match was lighted upon the family's return, there was an explosion, and all four were fatally burned. 3 Negro children: Ruby Nell Harris, Mary Burnside. Ruby Nell Harris was 4, Mary Burnside 8, and Frankie Thurman 12 of Kosciuszko, Mississippi, were slain on January 8, 1950 by 3 white men, Leon Turner, Malcolm White, and Wendell Witt, who also raped Pauline Thurman, 17, and shot Thomas Harris, the father and stepfather of the children. Harris died of his wounds. Turner and Wendell Witt received life sentences. Malcolm White was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. Matthew Avery, student of North Carolina A&T College, died after an auto accident on December 8, 1950. When he was refused admittance to Duke Hospital at Durham, he died 1 hour later. Leroy Foley died in Breckinridge County Hospital, Hardinsburg, Kentucky, on August 1950 after he and 2 other Negroes lay on the floor for 3 hours, refused medical attention for injuries and an automobile accident. Betty Graves, a nurse in the hospital, said that they were refused treatment because we didn't have facilities for colored people. A Negro ambulance service was called to transport the men out of the hospital. It was 70 miles away and did not arrive for 3 hours. Jesse Lawrence, its driver, said the blood had not been wiped from their faces. Jesse Davidson of Jackson, Georgia, was slain on his farm on June 12, 1948, by 2 men who accused him of not moving his wagon over to the right quickly enough when they wanted to pass him. Ellis Hudson, 50, of Nacogdoches, Texas, was shot and killed by Texas Constable 1 Happenstead, who had beaten and imprisoned Hudson's son during the week of March 21, 1948, because the boy did not address him as sir. The elder Hudson was killed when he came to court to arrange bail for his son. Hosea W. Allen of Tampa, Florida, was shot and killed on September 26, 1948, when he asked to be served a bottle of beer. Victor Pinellas, the proprietor of the tavern, explained that he killed Allen because he did not permit Negro customers. He was freed. Isaiah Nixon, a 28-year-old war veteran, was shot and killed in the presence of his wife and children on September 6, 1948, after he had voted in that day's primary election in Montgomery County, Georgia. A jury freed M.L. Johnson, the killer. Willie Palmer was shot 5 times and critically wounded by J.C. Bradford on June 24, 1950, because he sat in the white section of a restaurant operated at the Knox Glass Company in Jackson, Mississippi. Sheriff Troy Mashburn said the shooting was in self-defense. Robert Mallard, a 37-year-old Negro salesman, was shot and killed in Lyons, Georgia, on the night of November 20, 1948, after he had led a campaign defending the right of Negroes to vote. His car was stopped and ambushed by 3 cars set up as a roadblock. He was killed in the presence of his wife, Mrs. Amy Mallard, his child, and 2 cousins. Mallard had been warned not to vote in the Democratic primary election. Otis Newsom of Wilson, North Carolina, a 25-year-old veteran and father of 3 children, was shot and killed during the week of April 4, 1948, by N.C. Strickland, a gas station operator. Strickland killed Newsom after the Negro asked that service for his car with brake fluid that he had just purchased. Roe Nathan Roberts, 23-year-old war veteran, was shot and killed in Sardis, Georgia, when he failed to say yes, sir, to a white man in May of 1947. A student of Temple University, Philadelphia, on the GI Bill, Roberts was visiting relatives when he was killed. No one was tried for murder. Willie Pittman, a taxi driver, was found slain and mutilated on May 28, 1947, on a country road near Rocky Mount, North Carolina. That's where my family's from. His legs and arms had been cut off, his body split open, and his head smashed. Hosea Carter of Sandy Hook, Mississippi, was found dead May 2nd, 1948, of a shotgun blast in the chest. Deputy Sheriff T.W. White said Carter had been killed by a white man whose name I don't remember. He added, however, that the murder had done what any decent white man would have done because the white man had found Carter trying to enter a home. Mrs. May Noyes, a 22-year-old pregnant mother of 3 children, was shot and killed on May 4th, 1947 by a white man, Albert Huey, at Camp Hill, Alabama. Huey was running amok, shooting up the Negro community after an argument with a Negro war veteran. When he was accosted, Mrs. Noyes When he was accosted, Mrs. Noyes and shot her in the hip. She slumped to the street. Huey kicked her. Get up. She staggered to her feet and started to run, but Huey shot her in the back. She crawled on the porch of a white woman where she died. Huey was released on a $1,000 bail and no charges were ever placed against him. Charles Smith was slain by Marvin Matthews and Wyatt Adams on November 23, 1947, when they were terrorizing the Negro community at Wilmington, North Carolina. At the same time, they shot and wounded Daniel E. Brassford and attacked 4 other Negroes. A Harnett County jury freed the men after deliberating 27 minutes. Wesley Thomas, a Negro woodchopper, was shot in the back and killed by D.W. Thompson, a 21-year-old white, on June 30th in Louisiana. Thomas had engaged in an argument that morning with the white farmer from whom he had been asking back pay for work performed. A posse was looking for him when Thompson was found and shot him as he was running towards his house. He tried to run into the house, and I let him have it, Thompson said, and was exonerated on the grounds that there were weapons in the house towards which Thomas was running. Elmore Bowling, 30, was shot and killed December 1947 in Loudonsboro, Alabama. Clark Lucky, a white man who claimed the Negro had insulted his wife over the telephone, was arrested for murder but was later released. Caleb Hill, prisoner in Ironton, Georgia jail, was taken from his cell on May 30th, 1940 by 2 white men, according to Sheriff George Hatcher, who said they had picked up the jail door keys from his desk. Hill was beaten and shot to death. His body was found 3 miles from town. Dr. M.A. Santa Cruz, prominent Negro dentist of Pulaski, Virginia, was beaten to death on February 6, 1951 by 2 white hoodlums who were molesting 2 Negro girls. He was killed when he attempted to protect them. Morris Scott was slain during the week of October 7, 1950 in Linden, Alabama by William R. Welch and George Baker. Welch admitted firing the shotgun blast that killed Scott. County Sheriff T. Wilmer Shields declined to disclose the motive for the killing. Perhaps this fragmentary list may serve to indicate the extent of mass murder on the basis of race. Each slaying is to no small degree terrifies entire Negro communities, for that is its purpose. It is not uncommon for inhabitants of such communities to spend days and nights hiding in the wood and swamps after slaying. These crimes are not unconnected with the Negro's fight for the right to vote, as guaranteed him by the 14th and 15th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States. If a Negro has no right to life, he clearly has no right to vote. If a Negro may die for asking for a bottle of beer, Something similar may happen if he asks for a raise or back pay or tries to organize into trade unions or go on strike. In the South, the Negroes' fight for the ballot is the central issue. Around it revolve most of the incitements to genocide and virtually all the widespread terrorist activity of the Ku Klux Klan. Incitement to genocide. Incitement takes many forms, but the common denominator of every form is openly avowed determination that the Negro shall not have the rights guaranteed him under the Constitution of the United States, the United Nations Charter, and the Genocide Convention. Thus, James E. Burns, governor of South Carolina, former Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, former Secretary of State, former senator, recently declared that South Carolina would abolish the state school system rather than abolish segregation in the schools. Openly flouting the basic law of the United States and United Nations, he not only incited to genocide, but reinforced a system which trains thousands of children in white supremacy, guaranteeing genocide and its protagonists in the future. When another recent statement, the former Secretary of State, so solicitous while in that office for free elections everywhere, save in his home, declared that South Carolina would find a way to retain its white primary elections. He incited genocide against any American Negro who tried to avail himself of his legal right to vote in South Carolina. That is not the rhetoric. That is not rhetoric that will be proven by numerous instances of Negroes killed or assaulted when they attempted to vote, after white citizens had been incited to murder, and other violence against the Negro people, such as statements by those of Burns. We shall prove, moreover, that such incitements by high government officials are the rule rather than the exception in many parts of the South. We shall show that Governor Herman Talmadge of the state of Georgia, inciting genocide over the radio October 22nd, 1949, when he said, speaking of Negro efforts to enforce the Constitution, we will fight them in the counties and in the cities. We intend to fight hand in hand with all of our weapons, and we will never submit to 1 inch of encroachment on our traditional pattern of segregation. We shall show numerous other such instances on the part of Governor Talmadge and other officials of the state of Georgia submitted in the appendix a detailed case history revealing how genocide is used in Georgia to deprive American Negroes of their right to vote. The Georgia case history is typical of the record of such violence throughout the South. We shall submit for your attention incitements to genocide, sometimes delicately phrased, but always unmistakable in their meaning and tragic in their result, by Governor J. Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, Governor Fielding M. Wright of Mississippi, and former Governor Dixon of Alabama. We shall show how these officials and others formed a conspiracy in 1948 to deprive people of their vote through violence. Its guise was a political part of the so-called states' rights or Dixiecrat movement. Its successful purpose was the liquidation of President Truman's demagogic appeal for civil rights. We shall submit excerpts from the official speaker's handbook of the state rights movement, approved by Governors Thurmond, Wright, and Dixon, and punctuated throughout with incitements to violence. Typical of the incitements is on page 52, which reads, in many counties throughout the South, a few thousand whites operate farms, businesses, and industry and furnish employment to hundreds of thousands of Negroes. If these Negroes voted and elected their kinds of officials, which would happen if they voted, there would not be business or industry operating in the county 12 months after they took over, unless violence was resorted to for the protection of business and industry and farming against the improvident acts of incompetent and corrupt administration. Certainly, no right thinking American wants to wreck any section of our country. Not even the highest tribunals of the American state, the Senate, and the House of Representatives are exempt, as we shall show from these incitements to genocide. For example, in June of 1948, Senator Allen J. Ellender of Louisiana told the Senate of the United States, the more freedom and the more privilege a Negro is given, the more he will abuse that privilege. He will run wild and do violence to society in which he moves. It is manifest, we submit, that after hearing Senator Ellender, that some white Americans think that it is their duty to prevent Negroes from doing violence to the society in which they move by seeing it that they not get more freedom and more privilege. By means of this spurious rationale, genocide is made into civic virtue. To view such expressions as philosophic abstractions or political huckstering is to ignore the violence and death that are daily fare of the Negro people as a direct result. Senator Walter F. George of Georgia wrote in a moment of candor in 1936, "Why apologize or evade? We've been very careful to obey the letter of the federal Constitution, but we have been very diligent and astute in violating the spirit of such amendments and statutes as would lead to the Negro to believe of himself the equal of a white man, and we shall continue to conduct ourselves in that way." Sorry, this thing is acting weird. Okay. All right. Klan terror. With statesmen justifying genocide, it remains for others and the scores of vigilant organizations that dot the South, chartered and encouraged, as we shall show, by the various states to carry out the crime. More specifically, great inflammatory anti-Negro meetings in which thousands of robed members participate are common throughout the South, particularly during election years. A Reverend Harrison, known as the Railroad Evangelist, told a meeting of the Atlanta Ku Klux Klan, for example, November 1st, 1948, "In God's sight, it is no sin to kill a nigger, for a nigger is no more than a dog." In the same meeting, according to witnesses, one Itchy Trigger Finger Nash, an Atlanta patrolman to whom the Klan had given an award for killing more Negroes than any of his colleagues, expressed the hope that he would not have to kill all the Negroes in the South by myself. "I want some help from my brother Klansmen." Typical of the membership oaths of these vigilante organizations is that of the United Sons of Dixie, which was incorporated in Tennessee on December 28th, 1943, operated as a wartime front organization for the Ku Klux Klan. The oath included, "Will you fight to make the USA a white country? These United States of America must and shall be a white man's country for white people, the master race. We must keep it that way." At one point in a ceremony for new members, according to a report filed with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the president of the United Sons of Dixie said, "We want 15 million members in the United States, and every one of them with a good gun and plenty of ammunition. Eventually, we must eliminate the Negroes from this country." Typical, too, speeches heard on the many street corners in southern cities. That was Homer Lewis Jr., leader of the Columbians, a racist vigilante organization chartered in the state of Georgia. On the corner of Stovall Street and Flash Shoals Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia on October 1st. October 1st, 1946, he says, "We don't want anybody to join," he said, "who's not ready to get out and kill niggers and Jews." 2 days later, in a meeting of the Columbians at 198.5 Whitehall Street in Atlanta, Georgia, Loomis said, "There is no end to what we can do through the ballot. If we want to bury all niggers in the sand, if we organize white Gentiles politically to combat the Jew and nigger blocs, we can pass laws enabling us to bury all niggers in the sand." During the same year, Loomis told the Imperial Concilium of the Ku Klux Klan, East Point, Clavering, Georgia, "We propose that all niggers in America be shipped back to Africa with time bombs on board the ship as an economy measure." With other racist terrorist organizations include, as we shall show, the American Gentile Army, sometimes called the Commoner Party, and the J.B. Stoner Anti-Jewish Party. But by far the largest is the Ku Klux Klan, chartered in most southern states as well as elsewhere. Its philosophy is so reminiscent of Hitler's. It is exemplified by the statement of the imperial wizard Hiram W. Evans, writing in Negro Suffrage, a false theory: "The first essential to success of any nation, in particular any democracy, is the national unity of mind. Its citizens must be one people," he writes in German, "ein Volk. They must have common instincts and racial and national purpose. We should see in the Negro a race even more diverse from ourselves than are the Chinese, with inferior intellect, inferior honesty, and greatly inferior industry. His racial inferiority applies equally to all alien races and justifies our attitude towards the Chinese, Japanese, and Hindus. No amount of education can ever make a white man out of any other color. It is a law on this earth that the races can never exist together in complete peace and friendship, and certainly never in a state of equality." Opening on this principle, thousands of hooded, masked Klansmen robed in white rode through the countryside, killing, flogging, shooting, wrecking, pillaging. Their activities are winked at by what passes for democratically elected legal authority when not initiated by it. Police officers themselves often participate in their activities. The target of their organized terror is almost always the Negro people, although with increasing frequency, members of the Klan are hired to prevent unionization of workers to keep wages down. The terror organized by the Klan, with its cooperation, as we shall prove, of various states, is a powerful mechanism in preventing almost 2/3 of all of those eligible to vote under the law and constitution in 7 southern states from actually voting. It is a major instrument of terror in preventing political democracy in the southern United States, thus perpetrating in power, as we shall show, a minority clique and corporate interests that they represent, not only locally but nationally in the federal Congress. Our evidence includes many instances of psychological terror and mass intimidation on the basis of race, particularly as perpetuated by the Klan. These, we maintain, contravene that part of the Genocide Convention forbidding the causing of serious mental harm to members of the group. Some indication of this terror is manifest in the following cases. Cyclops Roper of the Georgia Ku Klux Klan reported April 1st, 1946, that he had conferred with the gubernatorial candidate Eugene Talmadge on the ways and means of keeping Georgia Negroes from voting, and that Talmadge had replied by writing that the word pistols on scraps of paper. In a radio address from Jackson, Mississippi on June 22nd, 1946, Senator Theodore Bilbo of the Senate announced that he was a Klansman. He called upon every red-blooded American in Mississippi to resort to any means at their command to prevent Negroes from voting. After a good deal of violence against those Negroes who tried to vote, Bilbo was reelected. On March 2nd, 1948, 300 robed Klansmen in Wrightsville, Georgia, paraded around the courthouse square and burned a cross there on election eve. Said Dragon Green, "Whenever the Negro takes his place at the side of the white man, blood will flow in the streets of the South." March 20th, 1948, in Jeffersonville, Georgia, crosses were burned on the courthouse lawn on Saturday and Sunday nights before the county primary day. Small coffins labeled KKK were placed on the doorsteps of those Negroes who it was thought might try to vote. At Columbus, Georgia, KKK, white supremacy leaflets were dropped from an airplane over the Negro districts just before the primary election. On June 30th, 1948, at Macon, Georgia, a cross was burned before the home of Larkin Marshall, Negro Progressive Party candidate for the United States Senate. He received notes threatening him if he did not withdraw his candidacy. On Georgia, 3,000 robed convening in car 100 new members under a foot fiery cross. Herman Talmadge was extolled by Dragon Green as the only man in the gubernatorial race who believes in white supremacy.